And my dad just saying, Griffin, I'm so proud of you. I love you. The next day I'd get another phone call that my dad had suddenly passed away.
And young adults are coming home. God's saving souls.
Just thinking, man, if I can help contend for a generation to find resilience and know how to manage their distress and how to turn to God in those moments, then that's something worth for me giving my life to.
We need more dads. We need more Christian dads. We need more strong dads. We need more present dads. And what better place to raise them up than young adult ministry? This is the Young Adults Today podcast. I'm Josiah Kennealy, and in just a moment, my wife Micah and I, we talk with Griffin McGrath, Dr. Griffin McGrath. It's a powerful conversation. He shares his story of loss and suffering, and also finding and discovering resilient faith. He and we discuss the rise and the surge of young adult ministry across Arizona and how hope, secure attachment to God, and spiritual covering fuel resilient faith in Gen Z and Gen Alpha faith. I'm pumped for you guys to hear what Dr. Griffin shares and has to say, and we're really glad to have you tuning in. Subscribe wherever you're at. It will help us. If you've ever enjoyed our conversations or found them beneficial in your life, in your leadership, in your ministry, would you please give us a follow, give us a subscribe where you're at? It will help this podcast grow, and we'll continue to be able to bring the best guests and conversations possible. On to our conversation with Griffin.
Well, happy, Wednesday in the studio today, everybody, but it's probably a Monday for you with the Young Adults Today podcast. I'm Micah.
I'm Josiah Kennealy. We are your hosts. We're joined by our guest, Griffin McGrath, my friend. It's so good to see you.
Hey, honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being a part of the conversation, and it's fun to see you again. It's not been that long since we've seen you in person too, and that makes me smile.
Definitely. Yeah, we loved having you, Arizona. You're welcome anytime. This can be your second home.
You know what? There's a lot of life and marriage or proposal. We have some roots there. And
my parents used to live there. I was conceived there. Weird fun fact for you. I realized how crazy it was. Phoenix, Arizona.
Let's just dive straight in.
Phoenix and Tucson was a little too crazy in the 80s, so they moved back to North Dakota. So I could have been born and raised there. My life would be different, but I love Arizona. It has a special place in my heart.
Same.
Multiple reasons. Josiah proposed there, yes.
Yeah, at the Grand Canyon. I'll never forget that.
Iconic.
It is.
Yeah, way to go.
It is.
We need
It's working out for you.
Easily. We need to make a family trip back there soon and show them the spot on the South Rim.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I love it.
But Griffin, we ask every single guest on this podcast why they believe young adult ministry is so vital, and I'm dying to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like personally, I know what it's meant for me, that the ministry I received as a young adult. But it was while I was a young adult in college, I felt the Lord was really stirring my heart for young adult ministry. I had youth ministry, more context for that. But even as a freshman, in my college experience, I was asked to lead our whole floor with discipleship. And I was thinking, isn't there a senior or, junior or someone else to lead this? But I just felt like the Lord, prompted me to help lead my peers at that point. But what I discovered was that this is not the demographic leaving the church as much as it is the senders and those that just are equipped to go and most opportune to respond to the Great Commission, truly. And so I felt like in my heart, what was kind of birthing in me for ministry was that this is the most untapped sending force, like the sleeping giant within the church. And we shouldn't be so defensive about losing a generation, but more, Lord, you've equipped us to send and equip so they can go.
Yeah. So good.
That fires me up.
I think it's a great opportunity. And for the listener who's just tuning in and maybe just doesn't know your story, Griffin, can you take us there a little bit about your story, how you got to where you are today and what God has you assigned to right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll say this: I'm proud to be a PK, a pastor's kid.
Wow.
I have Josiah. I'll have to find out. I wish I was prepared to do this, but I have a '90s. I kept it. It's a visor. Have you seen anyone wear visors anymore?
Oh yeah, it's like a hat where
The hat without the top on it.
Yeah,
So
it's
I think
cut
that
off.
would have gone just swell if I just opened, with that today. But it says "proud to be PK" literally on it. I don't wear it, so truthfully, but I'm a proud pastor's kid and missionary heritage, and so I grew up just around the church, around the Assemblies of God was my context, and our tribe, our family within Arizona. And so growing up, my dad a youth pastor and trying to make things happen, and my mom growing up as a missionary kid to Haiti and Guyana, the West Indies. Seeing those two worlds kind of come together. My dad being just saved as a teenager, kind of going into the church. As a trailer park kid that was just invited by the pastor's kid across the street, and that pastor had just chosen to live right there in the community among the people. And it was that pastor's kid that invited my dad that really started our family lineage as far as coming into that. So I'm very grateful and have a big heart for those who are kids in ministry and just kind of grew up and brought up into it, because it matters. And so for me, growing up in that, I was around it, but it wasn't until I was 15 at an altar at a youth camp where I felt like the Lord really spoke into my heart and said, "Griffin, I got a really big plan for you." And I was excited. My dad was traveling ministering at the time, and so the speaker knew my dad. He's like, "Griffin, call your dad, let him know what God did in your heart." I was excited. I didn't know what that meant for me, but I was like, God's got a plan for me. He called me by name, and I was excited. I was hoping maybe that was baseball or something. I was like, whatever big plan that is.
Yes.
I'm just the fact that God's calling me out. I felt just honored and excited. So called my dad, told him, Dad, God's got a big plan for me. I don't know what it is, but I'm excited. And my dad just saying, "Griffin, I'm so proud of you. I love you." And just having that blessing, I didn't realize that would be the next day I'd get another phone call that my dad had suddenly passed away. My dad was working at the National Youth Office at the time, global ministry, traveling the world. And we shared my dad a lot with ministry, but I think just the burden of travel and the toll of ministry, he truly was giving his life to the cause of Christ. And my dad, passed away from a heart attack, dehydrated at 47, set off his electrolytes. And so that was the breaking news for my family. My mom and four of us boys, just having to reconcile with that new reality. And at 15, of course, you're kind of going through those questions of like, God, you just spoke to me at the altar and you told me you got a big plan for my life. And is this part of that plan? Because this is not it. This happens to other people. These are other stories. And so having to kind of face that reality. But my mom was such an anchor for us boys in that time, and just telling us like, "Griffin, we may not be able to see God's goodness right now, but we know he's good. We can trust he's good." And just keep leaning into trusting him. And, we just stayed really close as a family through that. But I never forgot like how the Lord called me, and just the timing of it, receiving my dad's blessing right before that, it just kind of stuck with me. And so I've always felt that like purpose and that drive of, God, I know you're doing something. I know you're calling me, but I don't know fully what that is. And so, long story short, with just my journey of that was just continuing to trust the Lord, and still maybe thinking baseball was in my future or something. Went to college playing baseball, having scholarship, going through that, and got injured, while I was in college, and kind of had a doctor tell me, because I'd fractured my sacrum, and my spine was all kind of messed up. I was like, what in the world's going on? And the doctor just saying, Griffin, this isn't career ending, but it's going to be career aggravating. And I felt like at that moment that as the doctor was saying that, surgeon, I was like, if it gets worse, it's surgery, or I can just trust that the Lord might be doing something here, and just submitting and surrendering baseball to him. I didn't think I was idolizing it, because I was thinking this is for ministry. But I think what I realized was the Lord was just, as a college student, really a formative time through a painful experience. I didn't realize too how baseball is so connected with like the approval thing for me, like that father's blessing, those, just that feeling of like, I'm not enough. If what if I give up this identity. But it was just truly learning to surrender that to the Lord. And, as I did that, as the Lord was saying, like, Griffin, it's not career ending, but it's career aggravating. Like, you're going to know in the back of your mind, there's something else for you. And it's not just this. So I feel like when I did that, the Lord just really blessed it. I had been dating my girlfriend, who is now my wife, Bethany. It was Whitlock as her maiden name. She grew up as a DYD kid, pastor's kid, and at the national office. We met when we were 13, but it wasn't until like later we'd start dating, and then in college we got married. So married in Missouri, where we were in college. So I called it misery, being from Arizona. That was my desert land. But we got married, and the Lord really, really was stirring ministry on our hearts for that. And so that's kind of a little bit of our beginning of our story. And then we moved out to Arizona to lead the youth ministries. And what's crazy is, is full circle. I'd be asked to lead the camp ministry and the ministries within Arizona where God called me and where my dad led years ago.
Wow.
And what an honor. Like, the place I last saw my dad at camp and gave him a hug, not knowing it would be the last on a Father's Day, is the place. I climb that hill every summer to help students see their Heavenly Father and just meet with the Lord. And it's very redeeming. It's a painful place, it was, but now I've been able to create so many new memories. My wife and I have two beautiful boys. They're strong, handsome men, and they remind us, they're little reformers, but they remind us often, like, they have that fight in them, and they're going to do great things for the Lord. But they're 9 and 7, and they're wild, but I love them. And so I past couple summers, I've been their dorm leader at kids camp, and that has been one of the coolest joys, just getting to be their dad.
Wow.
And my wife's just been married 15 years, and we still lead the youth and young adults, which I know we're going to get into, kind of how that began. But that's a little bit of like our journey in it. But the most recent cool news in our family is that we are expecting a baby girl, our first daughter. And she's my wife's 34 weeks, so we are probably the publishing of this 35 weeks on the call. So it's pretty amazing and miraculous, our story there. She is our 11th pregnancy. We had 6 miscarriages prior to our 2 boys. They're miracle boys. We had 2 more miscarriages, not thinking we'd ever kind of see this. And then not only is she our 11th pregnancy and going to be our 3rd born here, but in 100+ years in our family, we have not had a girl born in the McGrath family. And so she is a little century miracle girl. And to tell you, in our hearts, her being spoiled with love is an understatement. So we're very excited about this season, and God pouring out his blessings on us. Amen.
Congrats. And thanks for sharing your story too, by the way.
Definitely, absolutely, man. What comes to mind is the miracle is in motion, and there's been some valleys. There's been some times that you reference, and I'm so grateful that you've been vulnerable, honest, open, transparent with the listener, because maybe they find themselves today facing loss, facing the confusion, trying to understand this side of eternity, suffering, and what is God's will, and how could he allow such things to happen. And it's beautiful to see how God has brought some of those full circle moments for you, Griffin, and for your family, and how there's still more to come. And there's still amazing things in store for you and future generations of your family. And it's so vital. And I just acknowledge you at this point. I remember the year was 2017. And we were getting married. Coming up on 9 years ago. And our district superintendent here in Minnesota, Mark Dean, had been the DYD for, I don't know, maybe 25, 26 or so years. And he comes up to me at district council and he goes, "I want to meet with you before you get married." And we were like about a week or 2 away from getting married. And so I was like, okay. And he had asked if we would help. We were on staff at a church called Cedar Valley, leading young adult ministry. And he was like, "Would you help our state, our district, be a resource for churches that want to maybe start or strengthen a young adult ministry?" And what's wild, Griffin, what year did you start leading in Arizona with like young adults? I know you're DYD leading youth, but when did you start?
On like an official basis, 2017, that was the year we really launched. 2016, we kind of made some intentional kind of adjustments there. And then 2017 was our launch.
Oh my gosh. And we didn't know each other at the time, but I remember doing a little bit of internet digging and just figuring out, like I did when I started at Cedar Valley. 2012, I'm like, where are the other young adult pastors in Minnesota? Where are the other young adult pastors across the US? And then again, like stepping into a fractional district role, overseeing the state of Minnesota. I was like, is there anybody doing this? And I remember not being able to find much, but shortly thereafter, tracking with what God was doing with you in Arizona and some pop-ups and some camps. And I just acknowledge that you're a district youth director, which essentially means you're overseeing how many weeks of summer camp?
We have 9 camps now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these are mostly 6th through 12th grade. Maybe it's middle school, maybe it's high school, maybe it's combined. And you're doing youth convention, Speed the Light, among other things, youth pastor retreats, all of it. And you've made time because you feel a burden for young adults. And I'm grateful for that. And I acknowledge that you have been faithful, and it's not been the leftovers or an afterthought. And so thanks for being a fellow pioneer in the young adult space, my friend.
Absolutely. Honored. Yeah, it's so cool to hear you share that, and, Josiah, I met you, around that time where we started getting connected, and I was so encouraged that someone was calling us, asking for help, because we were in that place too of, hey, we're asking for help. And so just to, get connected with like-minded and just that heart of people who are going to contend for a generation. Again, so many feel so defensive about, they're on their heels about, but I think to see people speak with passion and hope and contention really encouraged us too.
Man, I remember another trip. It was either late 2021 or early 2022, but Micah Mack, who's a mutual friend of ours, the three of us on the call, and probably the listener too, is Micah was speaking at, I think it was a youth camp with you in Arizona. And I came along as Josiah Mon, didn't really have a role other than travel companion, and met so many youth students who were like, Josiah Mon, or so many people who were like actually youth and young adult pastors in your district. And I remember a couple of defining moments happen on that trip. One, I'm reaching for my pen. Dr. Griffin, I'm over here taking notes. Are you still making these beautiful, awe-inspiring wood handcrafted pens?
I am. Yeah, it's a little bit of a therapy, thing for me to work with my hands and get, kind of do the woodworking. It's a fun craft.
Well, I remember it was either late 2021 or 2022. Griffin gave me what I call my vision pen, my writing pen. And this is handcrafted. I'll link it in the show notes where, as a listener, maybe you need some inspiration. Get a pen, start writing down. Habakkuk is big on write the vision down, make it plain. So, hey, a herald can run with it. And you know what happened on that trip is Micah and I think, Micah, you had a near-death experience after the birth of our second daughter. That was traumatic. And afterwards, we're like getting home, you're getting healed. And you had kind of asked the question, which was what?
Oh man, I think we were in a pivotal moment of life at a crosshairs of realizing and started praying is this our biggest kingdom contribution? Like what we are currently doing. We were on staff as missionaries to a campus at the time that felt very closed off, that felt like in the midst of COVID, and just, you could have Tuesdays on the 4th floor at 3:00 when nobody's here. It's a commuter school. Nobody lives on campus, and you're up in Timbuktu. And I think something inside of me was like, there's so much more inside of me to offer a generation, and I feel limited and I feel capped off. And I think we've reached our capacity of what we can do here, just because God was moving and had so much traction in another field, which was this podcast. So I think that was the reflective question, is like, Lord, is this my biggest kingdom contribution? And if it is, I'll stay here. And if it's not, then what is this stirring and what needs to change? And we were called out, essentially.
And in that moment, I remember we had given our 4-year commitment with Chi Alpha. And if we give our word, we're going to finish out our commitment. And I remember on the flight back, I had this brand new vision pen, y'all. I'm talking to the listener. Maybe God's stirring a vision, a dream, something that you're called to plant, pioneer, move, shake, bake, start, partner with heaven. And I come back and I'm flying back with Micah Mack, and I'm like, Micah, I'm like, bro, I have this dream, and I know that people will like give financially to campus missions, campus ministry. There's this other dream in my heart that Micah had been a part of. He'd been a part of probably the first leader conference, the podcast, the first YA weekend at Lake Geneva, kind of like the camps that you do, Griffin. And we'd seen salvations, water baptisms, calls to ministry, calls to missions. It was wild. And I go, Micah, I feel like God's asking us to jump out of the plane. And he's like, do it, bro. And this is on the flight back from getting the vision pen from you, Griffin. And I'm on the flight, and Micah is basically like, bro, jump. God's got your parachute. And anyway, it was just, even today, talking to you and spending some time recently at GCU with some young adult ministry leaders from the Valley in Arizona, I just have felt like it's been one of those full circle moments of like, the verse that comes to mind is Thessalonians 5:24. The God who calls you is faithful, and he will do it. Doesn't mean Griffin will do it, or Micah will do it, or Josiah will do it. God's going to do it, y'all. If he calls you to it. Griffin, comments on that?
Yeah, no, it's so powerful. Preach, preach. I even just to come back to, because I think it's so powerful what you had shared, Micah, with just, what's our greatest kingdom contribution? That is such a powerful question, and a posture to realize this is not about me, and realize I'm very careful about when I talk about vision or ministry it could be semantics, but I think it's more than that, because you start saying something enough, you start believing it. So right. I kind of refrain from calling something my vision or my ministry. It's the Lord's. We pray the Lord of the harvest to send laborers to his harvest field. It's his field. It's his workers. And so this ministry I hold with an open hand, and it was given to me. It was entrusted to me. So I take it with deep responsibility and stewardship. But I'm going to present this back to the Lord. And at some point, this is this life is so, it's like a vapor. I think I was just reminded of that as a young kid. It was, this life is short. Nothing is really guaranteed in those, future oriented things. What's guaranteed is the now and what's in my hand now. And so I think when, we talk about calling and ministry and vision, it's the Lord's vision. He's entrusted this to me. I got a glimpse of it, and I'm so excited about it. I feel like the Lord started stirring a vision on my heart when I was in Missouri for Arizona. And at the time, I felt like I could see, I was careful even then, maybe you're just feeling like I've seen this maybe abused before, different things, but I didn't realize, maybe I wouldn't call it a vision at that point, but I felt like the Lord was showing me this desert of Arizona, my home state. And it was like, it was on fire with the presence of God. It was like these pockets of wildfire, just stirring up. And actually the first year we came to Arizona, I kind of kept that, in my pocket a little bit. I'm like, I don't want to share this right now, because people say, Griffin, what's your vision for Arizona? I'm like, I don't have a vision. But it's kind of like that Nehemiah principle. Like, you got to walk the perimeter, get it in your heart, allow it to compel you, the needs and the felt needs, because you may feel like going into an area like, oh, I know how people should be served. And that judgment call from the beginning is an initial impression. They should be served this way. But really, until you listen enough and ask them, how do you want to be served? Meeting a felt need, getting that in your heart. So I think that was the best decision we did. First year, we were 23. It was kind of we were very young. I feel like kids, leading our peers within Arizona. And, but people asking, Griffin, what's your vision? I'm like, we're just trying to get God's vision in our heart. And it became more and more clear the more people we talked with, they started to articulate something about, a fire or something lighting up within Arizona, like this spiritual, revelation of a God's speaking. He's doing something new in Arizona. It's a fresh start. There's new perspective. And so as we started to see that, we realized this was not our vision to begin with. We knew this, but the Lord is allowing others to kind of catch this vision, and we're running together. It's not about me. And I think we just realized that very early on. So I think that question though, of what is our greatest kingdom impact, immediately assumes this is not my kingdom. This is his. This is not my call, not my vision. This is his ministry. And, but then being able to, with integrity and a conviction, give yourself to something that truly matters.
Yeah, I think I'm reminded of like you had like the Nehemiah idea there. And I just think of like how many times do we have Joseph moments when God does give us a dream or a vision or a word, and then we go run and tell everybody, and we don't sit on it long enough to even process it. Because what did Joseph do? He had the dream, like the wheat's bowing to him, was like, hey, oh, brothers, like you're going to bow to me someday. And I think that's when God's speaking to you, it's just like, okay, did you take it back in the prayer closet? Are we going to sit on this for a while? Are we going to ask the people? Are we going to study the land? Are we going to do an ethnography of not what does Micah think that they need, but what is the Holy Spirit speaking and saying to reach young adults, or to reach the people that God has called us all to in some regard. So Griffin, I would love for you to take us there to Arizona when it comes to young adults in the Valley and where you're located. Like, what does young adults ministry look like in the network in Arizona currently?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it was acknowledging, I say 2017 is the year that we kind of launched more an official thing, but to realize there are many who planted years ago, and there's some great heritage of ministry that has come out of Arizona in the past. Ministries that have launched into more national frameworks, or turned in maybe contextualized different ways. But I think just the true intent of what's come from Arizona. We're a pioneer state, that Wild West, and so we kind of have this excuse of trying new things because it's kind of in our DNA a little bit. We have that pioneer spirit about us. And so, when people ask us questions like, has this ever been done before? Or, hey, we've never done it like this before. Those are actually for us invitations to go try it.
Let's go. You're our kind of people, man.
You're called Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, so realizing that like grace already on us spiritually of, hey, we can pilot things. We can, we're chasing failure and learning new things, through that, and realize like, we're kind of a test case for a lot of stuff. But I think back of, ministries that have really launched from Arizona, whether it was Master's Commission, we've had some really strong Chi Alpha ministries within Arizona.
Totally.
As well. University of Arizona, director there, went on to the national office, and, he's now pioneering in a new, country, new nation, in Iceland. Yeah. So it's cool to just see like that pioneer, it's in our heritage. So, for me to say we launched in 2017, I want to, for sure preface that with realizing there's some amazing works and pioneer works that have been going on, and we're existing. So part of our work was realizing what is the climate then in 2017? What was the current, young adult ministries happening then? And just kind of bringing some assimilation, cohesion to what was happening. So with ministries on the college campus with Chi Alpha,
yes,
so there's churches who had existing young adults ministries. So, getting some of those leaders together. I remember just calling one of those first meetings of like, hey, I'm going to call all the influential young adult leaders together, and we're just going to put it all on the table right now. Like, what's going on? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? And so that's kind of what we did in 2016 when I talk about some adjustments or alignment things we were doing, just to get us on the same page of like, hey, are we running together? Because there were some existing works. I would also say there was College of ministry colleges, extension sites that were happening. I'm on the board now with American Indian College. We have 22 native tribes in Arizona. I have a big heart for our indigenous tribes. So realizing there's a great campus ministry that's happening in Phoenix at American Indian College. And then the extension sites, getting some of those college directors together and, hey, let's put our brains together, because we wanted to target identify a target market. So 18 to 25 was what we were going to just say, hey, we're going to, really zero in on this age group, because I also realized, even within that, it can easily fracture out into different seasons of life. Whether you're talking about apprenticeships or college, gap year. You're looking at, young marrieds. Some of them are young marrieds with family. So just for us, identifying a market on that was really important for us. And then supporting the works of what was going on. So currently though, so 2017, I mean, we're nearing that decade mark of, okay, getting a pulse on this. But what I can say is it has evolved, but we've just really stayed a very consistent presence with continuing to offer inspiring events, but always putting leadership resources along those events. So the events would anything from like these, free open access worship nights that we just do across the valley, have different churches host them. We do them on the last Thursday of every month during the college semester. Awesome. That's how we started. It was just kind of tilling the soil, kind of getting in the heart of Arizona and modeling, what it could look like to have young adults gather and worship and pursue God's presence. And so we would just do those as kind of, we're kind of sowing the seed throughout Arizona. We do it in different areas. And each time we'd gather like that, every time, Josiah, Micah, like we'd have young adults come up and be inspired to say, hey, we don't have something like this going on in our church, but I feel like God's asking me to go start this.
Come on.
So what we realized is we were helping inspire other works totally. Just by stepping out in faith and obedience for us. We didn't have a lot of the resource behind it. So it was a lot of just asking churches to host, asking, worship teams to kind of come and assemble but just, riding off the hunger and, felt need of our young adults to have something consistent. And I'm sure you see this a lot because it still is the case. It's a very transient season of life and very inconsistent. So you can't really gauge based on like the numbers of attendance as much as consistent impact and saying, hey, we're going to keep showing up because the thing you need most in your life right now is stability and security. So we're going to continue to show up. We'll be here. And you can always, and so we're going to make that known, like when we're meeting, how this looks. And so as we've grown throughout Arizona, we're still sowing for sure, but it's more of now, instead of like trying to cast out a vision as much, we're trying to help resource and manage the, and not manage, that's not the right word. We're trying to lead and inspire the ongoing works of movements that are happening throughout Arizona. So I'm inspired. I think our heroes truly, and I hope that you have them on the podcast, as our young adult leaders. To me, they're the ones in the trenches, there's stories that are inspiring. So I'm always like, hey, what's the grassroots movement and how can we help facilitate and share those stories, which is exactly what young adults today, you guys are doing. But I think, for me to advocate, what does young adults ministry look like in Arizona now? I tell you the names of all these leaders who are doing it, seeing it, and getting inspired by the students that are getting, called in those moments, in those gatherings. We've done some young adults camps, conferences. We've done these kind of pop-up gatherings, sometimes kind of leveraging off of the resource we have, momentum of a youth convention. So like maybe the Thursday night before a convention or, kind of combining it along just where there's resource and kind of leveraging the momentum. But then, I'm telling you, each time we've done this, without fail, there's a new spark. There's an ember. There's something happening in the desert, and I'm just seeing it. God be faithful to His promise. He's stirring hearts. He's sending this generation.
Yeah.
Pioneers respond to, hey, well, we've never done it before. Has that ever been done? They respond with these three statements. Why not here? Why not us? Why not now?
Come on.
Mm-hmm.
That's what y'all have done in the Wild West. And that's why I'm fired up. And I'm sure the listener is too, because why not here? Why not now? And why not us? Why not the listener? Why not the viewer on YouTube? And you mentioned every time you do an event, and I think of Faison in Minnesota and Kaylee, I think of Jono and Kylie. I think of Joey, and I think of Turbo. Many of the young adults who maybe started out by attending the weekend camp, catching a vision, going back or moving somewhere, going to their next step of maybe education or North Central University, or going to a small rural community or a Twin Cities church, getting married, launching a young adult ministry. And then we see them at the March Leader Conference. And then now they are bringing a group next month in 15, 16 days to the YA weekend, or they're helping us plan the entire state event. And That's beautiful. And I think sometimes that's why Passion Movement, I think, has been so powerful in the lives of so many, maybe 50, 60,000 college students, 18 to 25-year-olds. They go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, or they go to Dallas, Texas, or Arlington, Texas, and they're like, wait, it's not just me. Like, I'm not the only young adult who's on fire for Jesus. And something happens in those spaces, Griffin. Undoubtedly, those are catalytic moments, whether it's in Arizona, Minnesota, your state, your city, as a listener. And that is beautiful. That is powerful. That fires me up.
Okay. I kind of want to geek out now because I know did you work on your doctorate already? Are you officially doctor?
Oh yeah.
Done.
Okay. You're done. Okay. You're feeling good. Can you share with us in the audience, during your generational research, what did you find when you were working on your doctorate?
Yeah. Well, there's a whole lot.
Are we going to nerd out here? Or, you smirked.
No, it's good. I can nerd out all day. I would. Absolutely. No, I felt like the Lord was asking me to double down on my studies. I didn't feel like I personally needed a doctorate. It wasn't something I was like, I just want to do this. But I felt like a real conviction to contend for this generation. And so specifically, my research was for Gen Alpha. And so we did interview a qualitative study, and so conducted that at a camp environment. So the place that was so formative to me, and I've seen year after year just God call students and young adults in those environments. And I wanted to ask more of with the psychology and spiritual formation, taking kind of a intersection of that, because I think we've learned so much about our minds and our emotions, and just with the mental health and the things that I'm learning about this generation, the things that are pain points and matter to them. I wanted to kind of see how they're regulating their emotions and forming resilience through hardship. And so it was a very deeply personal study for me. In fact, as I'm going through this study and contending for it, I went through it truly was the hardest season of my life personally in this. And as I was kind of approaching the phase of kind of the end of my program or towards working on my dissertation in the research, my older brother came down with an infection, emergency surgery at the Mayo Clinic in Arizona, and is admitted in the hospital on Halloween of 2024. And he would go through a 62-day battle and roller coaster of emotions for my family. Very traumatic experience for us going through that. We thought with all the hope in our heart that God would heal my brother, that he'd be here to share that story. But we said goodbye to my older brother. He's now with Jesus.
Wow.
The last day of 2024, New Year's Eve, he went to be with Jesus, and he's pain-free and healed and whole. And our family is still trying to navigate the pain of his absence. And so through that season, I didn't realize the framework of doing my doctorate on resilience. It feels ironic, but yet I know the Lord graced me for the season to do it while my kids are young. I'm so grateful my boys are doing this. But my thought was, if I could write a dissertation, I'm so grateful for all the things I have of my dad, with audio recordings or notes he had. He never published a book, but I go through those things and I think of, what would my dad be thinking about right now, or how would he navigate this decision? And I wanted my boys to be able to have a paper trail of how their dad formed his faith and what I was finding in my research. So a lot I could share on it, but I would say specifically for the young adults, the emerging generation coming into it, what I found was that when we asked the question, what caused you the most pain, the majority of the respondents answered with who. It was a personal pain or relational pain. And so through that, as they're talking about their personal experiences of pain, whether that's through abandonment, the feeling of rejection, those personal conflicts that are happening, those are deeply troubling. The thought of that's the things that matter to us, to this generation. But yet what I've really found was in studying the psychology of this with attachment theory, they're really showing encouraging signs of approach behavior. The fact that they can name their pain, they can name the things that feel distance from God, they're actually drawing closer. They're trying to have that approach behavior towards the Lord. There's a deep hunger. There's an encouragement. So as a practitioner, in ministry, you're seeing this, they feel there's this pain, but they know they're trying to run towards a secure base. And so that refuge, that feeling of, I'm in pain, I'm experiencing this emotional distress, but I'm able to draw near, or at least the intent is to draw near. I think what I also found was there's quite maybe confusion around those spiritual disciplines of being taught. They desire these, but maybe the how-to and guidance. We don't need more information. This age of information, the AI world we're in, what I found was that more information isn't always the best answer. Right. Because that, in some ways, that can create more overwhelm. It's like trying to teach someone about hydrodynamics when they're drowning. And he's like, "Hey, just listen to me. If I could just teach you this, like, no, I'm actually drowning. I can't perceive what you're going through." So even asking that question to the students, not just what caused you the most pain, but when do you feel the most distant from God? That question often they were answering not just a feeling of doubt, some apologetic, deconstruction of faith. It was actually more of a state of overwhelm of, I can't even consider the things of God when I'm going through this state of how I feel right now. And so that was really, revealing to me as well of maybe thinking about this phenomenon that we see where people hear the voice of God or they experience the presence of God when they feel most safe. There's actually something psychological taking place there too. And I feel like how the Lord would use these moments of intentional gathering, these intentional moments of pursuing Him, the idea of solitude, bringing these spiritual disciplines back to a generation to help guide them out of the state of distress and helping them lead more towards, an attachment, true secure attachment with the Lord. So, there's a lot more there. I think I found probably 4 major findings in it that I felt like was just going to be contribution to not just academia, but I think our Pentecostal heritage. And I think, for me, just thinking, man, if I can help contend for a generation to find resilience and know how to manage their distress and how to turn to God in those moments, then that's something worth for me giving my life to.
Wow.
My. We heard you share about this more at the what was it called? Arizona Leader Gathering with young adults today at GCU. And, I've been doing a little bit of my own study, Griffin, not for a doctorate. Just every book and movie that I've come across lately, it's been an unintentional research study that syncs up exactly with what you're talking about. It began with reading Surrender, a huge book by Bono. And he also has a 1 hour, I think it's Apple TV documentary. And you know what the whole book is about? His whole life, he lost his mom at a very young age. This is Bono, the lead singer of U2. Yeah. And what he talks about is his dad did his best, but there was a moment of surrender, and he talks about his voice changed when he forgave his dad and his dad forgave him.
Wow.
The lead singer of the band U2, that we've all heard their songs, but he had a moment and he said, like, it was spiritual. It was surrender. It was, he forgave his father and his father forgave him. And it was on his dad's deathbed. Similarly, Prof G, an atheist college professor, Scott Galloway from NYU, has written extensively about young men, abandonment, and his whole latest book, like 14-hour audiobook. You know what it's about? His dad wasn't there. His dad had multiple families, left him, abandoned him. Small Fry, a book by Lisa Brennan Jobs, documents what was it like being Steve Jobs' daughter, who he didn't put through school, who he didn't acknowledge was his daughter. and the pain and this is a prolific book. I mean, it's powerful. The logo, Jerry West right now is the #1 documentary on Amazon Prime. And you know what? He just passed away, 85 years old, but they put together this documentary, and he was like putting together the Lakers franchise as a player. Couldn't beat the Celtics. Then he beat the Celtics. Then it wasn't all that he was looking for. And so he put together the Clippers, the Lakers, some of these NBA teams. And what he was really looking for, approval from his dad that was never there, that he never found. And I could go on. Jordan Peterson, Greg Laurie, the two that I found, Griffin, that are positive, about the only positive, uplifting, because those are all downers. They really are. But unintentionally read The Way of the Father by Michael W. Smith. And there's a guy who honored his dad. There's a dad who did it right. And then the other one, Meg Meeker, Strong Father, Strong Daughter. This is for you, Griffin. You're about to be a girl dad. And the only book, this is a medical researcher. She has said the most important relationship in a young girl's life, Griffin, what is it?
Her father.
Ding, ding, ding. Bingo. And she said, Meg Meeker, a pediatrician, has had thousands of patients. And she said, nobody's cheering for dads. There's the Bart Simpson kind of prototype that millennials and Gen Z have had portrayed for 29 seasons or whatever they are on, as this is what a dad in America looks like. And she says, nope. She found this, and I'll share this and I'll stop. But she found that when a dad isn't even good as a dad, but he's just present. Get this, Griffin. When a dad is absent, you know what is present? Eating disorders, sex outside of marriage, teenage pregnancy, self-harm, suicidal ideation. When a dad isn't even like the greatest dad, but he's present, did you know that those 5 things, according to Meg Meeker in her research that's in Strong Father, Strong Daughter, those 5 things are absent when a dad is present?
Wow.
My.
Yeah.
That's
So
wild.
revealing. I was going to be, I know I'm done with my research on my dissertation side, but my new venture is Girl Dad. And so this is giving me a ton, Josiah, but how powerful. And I think so fitting for you to share this.
Well,
fun.
I am a fisher of men, but at home, our small church, I'm actually a dean of women. We've got three daughters. And, I have a friend who said, Josiah, you are a minority in a sorority. And you know what? It's God's assignment. And we need more dads. We need more Christian dads. We need more strong dads. We need more present dads. And what better place to raise them up than young adult ministry? And the other thing that I found is back to your wildfire vision in Arizona. We met with Tim Griffin, another Griffin. It's your first name, it's his last name, but he's been the campus pastor 16 years at Grand Canyon University. He said, Josiah, if we tried this event where 70 leaders attended 4 years ago, he goes, not many would have showed up because there wasn't as much of a focus on young adult ministry in the Valley. And so we have traveled, I think, extensively and researched extensively through this podcast and our ministry. And I would say among the 5 top places that I've seen young adult ministry just spread like wildfire, among a few of them, Arizona Valley. And so, man, Griffin, thanks for being a herald of that vision. And I would just declare prophetically that you're just getting started and that there's going to be other pockets. I've prayed for a Griffin McGrath prototype in every state. I've prayed for somebody that would contend for their city. We need it. The kingdom of God, it's his vision, not ours. But most often he uses a burdened Nehemiah. He uses a John Wesley. He uses a Henrietta Mears, or he uses, think of the Azusa Street Revival. He uses what? A William Joseph Seymour. He uses humble, hungry, available people who will open his word and gather the troops of young adults. And so, Griffin, are you up for 5 more questions, rapid fire? We call it the 5 and 5.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. This one, we heard about the miracle, so I already know the miracle thing, but I have a question for you. What advice do you have for somebody just starting out in a young adult ministry and understanding the importance of a spiritual covering?
Yeah. Oh, that's huge. I mean, spiritual covering, spiritual authority is massive. So I feel like you have something stirring your heart for that to go to your leaders. I think it might surprise young adults if that's kind of that desire. They're going just how much maybe their leaders have been praying for you. So to think about, that is the Lord allowing me to be an answer to prayer for someone contending for a generation and wondering, is there someone who'd be willing to step into this? And I just say, yes, know that there's a covering, know there's authority, and you're not alone. Maybe through this podcast, you're just realizing that, hey, there's other people that have this same heart and this hope for a generation. And so being able to share this with authority, but also know that, hey, there's a network of kingdom-minded leaders that care about contending. And so, you can run, it's the whole African proverb, if you want to go fast, run alone. If you want to run far, run together. Don't try to carry this alone. Go with your leadership, but also just start. Don't think you got to have something so polished to begin with. I think it's just that step of obedience and that yes, that God honors.
Mm-hmm. So good.
That's one of my favorite proverbs. It's also dead on the money. Like, young adults don't need the show. They're not looking for hype. The young adults we see, they're like just hungry for the word of God, the presence of God, godly community. You're dead on the money, Griffin. Okay, what's the best advice you've ever been given?
Well, I think something that sticks with me as a mantra in my family. I'm a huge proponent for women in ministry, and it's because I'm a byproduct in my own family. Wow. My great aunt Vivian Piper, she was actually ordained minister with the Assemblies of God right when they first could be ordained. So Amy Semple McPherson, she was like her right hand as she was starting out ministry. So you think of just the grittiness of like going out when you don't have a whole lot of approval. Maybe it was new for people to see just, women hear the call of God in their life and you just run with it. But Vivian, my great aunt, she would always say, lean into Jesus. And just when you feel like you can't lean anymore, lean harder.
Whoa.
And that has just stuck with us as a family. And it's just that resilience. She kept her credential as long as she could through it. She passed away at over 100 years old.
No, she did not.
Vivian Piper.
Are you serious?
So yeah, she's an inspiration to our whole family. I think it's just kind of that mantra of, just when you feel like you can't lean anymore, lean harder, because he's right there to be found.
That is fire. And I'm so glad that we have this podcast to document some of these stories, to share, because that right there is a story, a testimony that needs to be told, a story that's worth sharing.
I love that. It's so good. Okay, here's the curveball. Griffin, if you could ask Josiah and myself any question today, what would you want to ask us? Anything under the sun.
Yeah. I mean, I know we went, real personal from the very beginning, like, where you guys have roots and stuff, but I want to hear today, because it's called Young Adults Today, right? Mm-hmm. Young Adults Today. So I've been thinking about this, and I just want to see what brings you guys the most hope about the young adults today. What are you seeing today that gives you the most hope for the young adults?
I would say it has to do with their hunger and their tenacious spirit for truth. They're no longer desiring the cotton candy answers. And I learned this from a young man in Southern California. He was 19 years old. A couple summers ago, we were out there for a conference, and he had shared, he goes, my mom asked me this question, and he's like, I feel like this is what our generation wants. And his mom would say, do you want the beautiful lie or do you want the hard truth? And I think this generation, like, they're over the beautiful lie because they've
seen it.
They've gone down every avenue of the world or the lie of who Christ is or who Christ is or could be in and through them. So I think that gives me a great hope of knowing, like, they're not going to settle for anything subpar other than the word. We as pastors who are in those roles need to provide those opportunities for them to learn how to devour the word. Because I think you had said it somewhere at the top of the hour, you're like, hey, like they just need the practicalities of like, how do we do this? Like, I know it's important, but how do I pray? How do I fast? How do I hear the voice of God? What does immediate obedience actually look like in this day and age? Can I fight for my purity? What does scripture say about this? So I think they're coming with the right questions. And as people and pastors and people who have a deep longing for the kingdom of God to be, happening on this side of the world and the universe and the kingdom, it's really to keep in mind, like, they're not willing to settle, but let's not give them a reason to settle.
Whoa.
Yes.
So I think that they're challenging us as pastors in good ways. So I'm like, come on, bring it on. Like, I don't have all the answers, but let's figure this out together. And if we don't know, well, we'll find out someday when we get to heaven.
That's so
What would
good.
you say, Josiah?
I'm reminded of a friend of ours, Diego. His story, he was a prodigal who walked away from the faith, dealt with church hurt, dealt with loss, dealt with just life. And God called him home. And what gives me hope is, Griffin, God is still saving souls. We just saw young adults in a room fill up and stand and say, I believe, publicly, out loud, not text a QR code, not raise your hand. People were still looking around, and it was a holy moment where we just said, stand up and say, I believe if you believe. And young adults are coming home. God's saving souls. The prodigal story is alive and well. The prodigal God is like, his light is always on, his door is open. And so I think of the testimonies of, you know what, he's calling young adults out of darkness into his marvelous light. That fires me up. That never gets old.
Yeah, that's so good. I hope everyone listening is so encouraged by you. I'm encouraged by you guys. And I know you said earlier, like, hope, you see a Griffin prototype in different places. But I think for me, again, I'm grateful that anyone would see Jesus in my life or see the heart of God to pursue something. But I think it helped unlock me probably as a PK and as a young leader. A lot of people come up to me and say, you remind me so much of your dad. And it means so much as a compliment, not knowing sometimes that could be painful for me. But to realize, like, what they're trying to say is, they're like, you're following your dad's footsteps, or they're saying something along those lines. But it always felt kind of constraining. And it wasn't until I came across this quote by a philosopher named Basho. And he says, do not seek the footsteps of men of old, but seek what they sought. And for me, it kind of put my eyes off of trying to fit into or fill shoes or fit into someone else's mold on it. And, just keeping my eyes ahead and saying, Jesus, you're the very thing we're all seeking here. And so what does that look like for me? Wherever my feet lie, I'm walking, I'm chasing after you. And so I hope that that's what they see in you guys as well. Like, there's just there's a passion, there's a hope. And there's a Hope Rising Institute. They did a lot of research, saved a lot of people time on the most common factor, common denominator in the wellness of life. So what does it look like all across the board? The number one answer in every major study is hope. So spoiler alert, it's hope. And so to be resilient, to have that, the problem is a lot of people can't get to hope because of their pain and that traumatic state that they're in, but feeling safe and secure enough to feel like, okay, I can hold on to hope. And who is hope? He's got a name, is Jesus. So keep our eyes fixed on him and not being so focused on, the path that others took. It may be as simple as God's like, hey, come down this mountain, and, we're so focused on like, okay, God, well, which way? Like, and God's like, just come down this mountain. And we're like, well, they went this way. So just the command was go. And so keep your eyes on him. He's going to hold you. I genuinely believe this in my heart, that if your whole heart is to pursue Jesus and your heart is to be faithful and pursue him, keeping accountable to people around you, and you're pursuing him, God will not allow you to go outside of his will and his plan for your life. That side of like continue and contend for him, everything that feels like a failure, everything that feels like a setback. It's not about being righteous to live a balanced life. Everyone's trying to chase that, but it's, the righteous man falls 7 times, he gets back up every time. And what makes a man righteous is not his ability to get up, but it is that surrender, and it's that, resurrection power to keep going. And, like Vivian Piper, like lean harder, just keep leaning into Jesus. Don't overcomplicate this. I'm the analytic and, more, I kind of, will think about things theoretically, but just the simplicity of following Jesus, letting go and just trusting him, chasing after that. I think you guys have that hope and inspires me, and I'm hoping others are just as inspired.
I love it. So good.
My. Griffin, thanks for that word. What a great way to close, to hold on to hope, to lean harder today. This is the Young Adults Today podcast.